Good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to this LigoLab webinar entitled Has Our Laboratory Outgrown Its LIS? My name is Michael. I will be serving as your host, but the real key people as part of this webinar are both Suren and Dennis. Suren, LigoLab CEO. LigoLab's been around for now, I guess we're in our 18th year. And probably best known for our enterprise informatics solution, the LigoLab, LIS, and RCM laboratory informatics platform. We'll dive a little bit into that, but as you look onto the right side here, you can see the agenda. This is not going to be LigoLab centric. This is going to be laboratory centric, and really try to flesh out the ideas and the information you need to properly assess where your LIS is now and what options there might be in the future if indeed it is time for a change. Also joining Suren is Dennis Winsten, independent consultant. Dennis Winsten's been involved in the laboratory industry for some 30 years, which is hard to believe, taking a look at this young man's face. But we are very happy to have him as an independent consultant, somebody who really has his eyes and his ears tuned into the laboratory world. It's, let's be honest, a pretty challenging world these days. So your insight, Dennis, will be very valuable here too. Two other things to keep in mind. We, as part of this presentation, will have a self-assessment toward the end of the slide deck that you'll be viewing during this discussion. So pay attention for that. And then please, if you have questions, we welcome questions, but we'll look to take care of them during a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So just keep that in mind. All right, with that, I think I'll turn it on over to Suren, and you can go from here.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael and Dennis. Really appreciate you being with us. I want to cover basically and acknowledge a critical fact here that the laboratory industry is undergoing a rapid evolution, and we're facing a significant challenge, especially with staffing shortages, dwindling reimbursements, and ever-shifting regulations. These aren't just minor hurdles for us all, they're reshaping the entire fabric of our industry. So in such a dynamic landscape, it's essential to ask ourselves, how do we not only survive, but thrive? The answer lies in adapting newer platforms, technologies, and adapting to change. And we must recognize that relying on the most advanced, automated, and intuitive platform isn't just an option anymore, it's a necessity. So during this webinar, let's explore how this shift is necessary for labs to stay relevant in the ever-shifting world, today's world, right? So let's take a look at some stats here. These came from the CLP Mag State of the Laboratory Information Systems Industry Report. And some key findings that are somewhat disturbing are, some laboratories are running on LISs and versions, 2/3 of them actually are running on LISs that are over 10 years old. I mean, that's a decade and so much in technology world. Every year it really counts like 3 years. So we're about 30 years behind in the laboratory industry for 2/3 of the lab, which is really disturbing. More than a quarter of the respondents stated that their LIS has known gaps or didn't support their testing needs well, right? A significant portion of these laboratories identified limitations in their systems' ability to keep up with long-term growth. For instance, almost 70% of respondents using a custom LIS reported significant scalability issues. And, unfortunately, integration and or overall interoperability still is a massive issue for laboratories. And approximately 45% of respondents were uncertain if their LIS was on the most current version, and nearly half of them described their LIS as mostly unreliable. Alarmingly, 17% reported experiencing reliability issues with their current LIS. These findings indicate a growing dissatisfaction among labs with enterprise system-based LIS modules or highly custom homegrown solutions, particularly in their ability to scale and meet future growth needs efficiently or effectively. So most of the labs that come to LigoLab, we see, this unfortunate status quo over and over. The following slide basically will focus us on an overlooked aspect of the laboratory information systems, and that's the unfortunate status quo many labs find themselves in. So first, let's look at the manual workflows and gaps that are created. Labs rely on these manual processes and try to fill these gaps with, staff. In an era where technology offers streamlined solutions, right? That's what's supposed to happen. These slow down the operations and leave a lot of room for errors and inefficiencies. Coupled with many laboratories, with the staffing shortages in our industry, these manual processes become significant impact for the lab and its bottom line. And the impact should be considered as part of the total cost of ownership of an LIS. So just because you might have an LIS vendor that is quote unquote cheap doesn't mean it's not costing a ton of money to the laboratory and having to fill up where the LIS can't. Inefficient workflows basically lead to increased labor costs, staffing frustration, morale issues, longer processing time, and a higher potential for errors, which in turn can affect the patient care and lab revenues. It's crucial to understand that investing in an up-to-date LIS isn't just about technology or keeping up with technology. It's about ensuring overall operational efficiency, financial sustainability in a challenging healthcare environment. Then there's a widespread use of Excel sheets, paper logs, access. People get really creative here with all the technology that they try to fill, these gaps with. And while these tools are familiar to all of us, they're far from efficient or secure in managing complex laboratory data. And this reliance on outdated methods can hinder our ability to process and analyze data effectively. We also see labs needing help with an outgrown LIS and the vendors who's supposed to support them. When your laboratory information system can't keep pace with your growth, it becomes a bottleneck rather than a growth facilitator. It limits your capabilities, affects throughput, and impacts patient care. Speaking of limited capabilities, many labs find their current LIS needs more features to meet today's challenges. These limitations can severely impact the lab's performance with its inadequate reporting tools, lack of integration options, or insufficient data analytics capabilities, allowing you to see where the bottlenecks are in the laboratory. So another significant challenge is a non-responsive vendor that's really unfortunate that we hear over and over as labs come to us. In a field where change is the only constant, having a vendor that doesn't respond to your needs or evolving needs, right, can be frustrating and detrimental to your lab's progress and success. Lastly, the issue of being nickel and dime for every configuration, module, upgrade, user, you name it. The cost can quickly add up, making it difficult for labs to maintain a balance between budget, constraint, and the need for advanced technologies. These challenges paint a picture of the current state of many labs, a state that calls for the urgent attention and action. Let's explore how we can move beyond this unfortunate status quo and embrace more efficient, effective, and scalable solutions for laboratories. Unfortunately, many IT teams end up building a monster in the lab, and this is typically out of necessity, with each body part here representing different systems and data silos in your laboratory. This is a current challenge many labs face due to legacy systems, lack, and modern features required for today's operations. So let's dive into this metaphor a bit more. Each part of this monster symbolizes a distinct system or a data repository. Some might represent your technical department systems, another for financial operations, data warehouse, outreach and tracking, you name it. What's the problem? These body parts don't communicate effectively with each other. They're, this is a Frankenstein. They operate in isolation, create data silos, and hinder your laboratory's ability to function cohesively and efficiently. And it creates lots of synchronization issues. All these systems need to be working in synchrony, harmony, right? And most of the time they don't. They have very simple integrations, which literally is basically like, having two rooms and communicating through like the door, the keyhole, basically, right? That's your integration from one system to another, where in a modern system that's designed from ground up, you should look for systems that have basically all of these walls opened up, so it's all in one solution, one system, one visible source of truth. So these siloed systems lead to like a labyrinth of complexities. Data transfers, become cumbersome and error prone. Reporting is delayed. Getting a comprehensive view of the lab's operation feels nearly impossible. This fragmentation not only slows down processes, but also impacts the accuracy and reliability of the data, which is critical, right, in today's healthcare and laboratory field. Moreover, the effort and resources spent in managing these disparate systems are substantial. It requires more manpower to input, extract, interpret data across multiple platforms, often leading to increased operational costs and lots of potential for human error, unfortunately. So the irony here is that technology, which is supposed to streamline our work, ends up complicating it, and when it's not integrated properly, right? So with that, to set up the stage here for Dennis, who has been, an independent consultant for over 30 years with a lot of experience, specifically in lab informatics. He'll dive deeper into the reasons, justification for digital transformation. And with his expertise, we'll explore how unifying these disparate systems through digital transformation can not only tame this multi-headed monster, but turn it into an ally, enabling your laboratory to function more effectively, reduce errors, and ultimately provide better patient care and revenues. So with that, pass it over to you, Dennis.
Happy holidays, and thank you for taking time out of your Christmas shopping to attend this webinar. As a matter of fact, after the webinar, I'm going out shopping myself. So as Suren said, he noted that roughly 2/3 of the labs are using systems that are over 10 years old. Just because they're old doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be replaced. However, there are a large number of reasons, and they're not in any particular order here, that justify replacing your system. And one of them is not having a cloud-based operating platform. As I look up to see if I can see the cloud, but I know it's there. That's an important consideration if your system is not cloud-based. Sometimes the systems that you have aren't sufficient, and they don't provide the opportunities for your lab volume growth, or they limit your ability to add new clients, which obviously is going to limit and affect the growth potential in revenue for your lab. Another factor to consider for replacement is the system is very expensive. It's expensive to operate. It's expensive to maintain. And the pricing model, how you're paying for your system, are you paying for on a per seat basis? Are you paying for a fixed license, or are you paying on a transaction basis? Whatever it is, the pricing model doesn't fit your current lab's cash flow or your financial situation. Another factor for replacement is the LIS well integrated with your billing and revenue cycle management systems or other institutional systems? If you're in a hospital, how well does it interact with your EMR, for example? The system might be based on software that's not mainstream or consistent with the national or industry standards, or incompatible with other existing systems. So those are 4, and there are more reasons. Support services for your system are poor. I did a survey a number of years ago and asked various people around the lab director, the pathologist, the lab techs, the LIS manager, what are the things that are most important to you with regard to your system and your system supplier? And you'd think that function and functionality would be number one, but it wasn't. The number one factor that people thought was important to them was the support they get in maintaining and keeping their system operating and fixing problems quickly, or ideally avoiding problems, preventing problems from happening. Functional, and functions are important. A lot of systems today, going back historically, don't have the current applications that are prevalent in and are necessary in today's laboratory. Molecular diagnostics, digital pathology, very flexible reporting, providing portals to the consumer. And more importantly, recently, the application of artificial intelligence to the entire laboratory LIS operation. Not having these functions clearly will place your lab at a competitive disadvantage. Another criterion for replacement is slowdown. You know, you could have the greatest functionality in the world in your system, but if your response time on your system is taking multiple seconds, obviously the throughput is going to be significantly affected by that, and your lab turnaround times are going to deteriorate. It's important for the lab to have in-house experience, and very often this is not provided and supported by your vendor. Also, federal and state regulations are constantly changing. Your laboratory system needs to be constantly updated and quickly updated to maintain compatibility with various regulations. Security. As you know, security has become a tremendously important issue these days. You need to assure that your system, your existing system, and many older ones are not set up for that, subject to penetration, and need to be compliant with HIPAA. I think most of the systems today, if they're operating, obviously are, but they need to be constantly upgraded to maintain security and to maintain consistency with HIPAA. This is not true so much anymore that your LIS company is no longer in business. However, as you know, many companies have been bought out by larger companies. Smaller LIS companies have been bought by larger companies. And the extent to which the larger company is going to support the company that's acquired is very questionable, and historically has not been a good sign for companies, LIS companies that have been successful, that have been acquired by a larger entity. The original LIS company that you bought, we see some of this today as well, has been replaced with a more modern version and is discontinuing the version that you have so that you will not be getting enhancements and support for your LIS going forward in time. Another factor to consider for replacement is your original LIS company has been acquired by a larger company with a competing LIS product, which is very similar to the company about you replacing your system. So now you've got a competing LIS product, and you don't have contractual assurances that you're going to get continuing support. Although even if you do have assurances that you're going to get continuing support, if there's a competing product, which is the main focus of the company, the new company, you can be assured, one thing you can be assured of is that the kind of support you're going to be getting isn't what you expected in the past. So if you're thinking about replacing your system, as you know, it's not an easy thing to do. Budgets are very tight. There's a lot of competition for the funds that are available, either within your independent lab or in a hospital setting. And how do you go about justifying a system to get budget approval? The things you need to do is you have to do and develop a very rigorous financial spreadsheet analysis, which shows the benefits, the financial benefits, the operational benefits that you will acquire and you will achieve by going to a new system. For example, going to a software as a service model, particularly when your capital budgets are limited and you want to avoid upfront costs for the system and replace it with monthly costs that vary with your workloads. So to the extent that you've done a rigorous and definitive analysis and a cost benefits projection, I usually like to look at 5 years. What's the total cost of ownership of the system over 5 years? If you do a vigorous analysis and present it to your management that says, okay, here's a good rationale, here's a good financial, a good operational, and a good regulatory rationale for replacing the system, the chances are a lot stronger that you'll be given the go-ahead for a much-needed replacement LIS.
So let's take a look. Thank you, Dennis. By the way, with Dennis, we also bring him on as a consultant to help understand the ROI and the benefits you've gained as a customer on LigoLab, and also can help get the metrics that are in place today and potentially do estimates on how you could benefit in the future from the system too. So I think this is also another important an exercise that could be done to justify the LIS.
I think that's very important. It's surprising how many labs don't really look at the metrics when they put in a new system to see how and be able to measure the benefits of the system after the course of using it for 6 months or a year. And all the key performance indicators can be measured before and after. And that's a tremendous feedback to your administration that you did the right thing.
Yeah, and a lot of it could be due to that monster we saw earlier. Because of all the silos, it becomes really hard to get this information in. So let's explore what the benefits are of a digital transformation for your organization, right? So these advantages are not just about keeping up with kind of the latest trends, right? They're about fundamentally enhancing the way our laboratories are operating and how we serve our communities. Firstly, digital transformation allows us to standardize and reduce complexity, right? How do we do that? By having lots of, by having a unified system, we can ensure consistency across all operations, making it easier to manage and maintain and train staff. Standardization also plays a crucial role in error reduction, turnaround times, minimize the variability in how tasks are performed, and really set you up to scale. Next, we can streamline and automate processes. These automations transform time-consuming manual tasks into efficient, technology-driven processes. This not only speeds up our overall operations, right, but also frees up staff to focus on more critical and value-added tasks. We see many laboratories scale with us, and they're able to scale 2, 3, 4 times more volume with the same amount of staff, or maybe 10% more that's added. So it's much more important to, especially with these limited staff people, to allow them to be doing more relevant tasks in the laboratory and let the system do a lot of the redundant and boring tasks. For example, optimizing compliance, right, to reduce the risk is another significant benefit. Digital transformation brings advanced tools to help us stay compliant with the ever-changing regulations in healthcare. By automating the compliance-related tasks, we minimize the risk of errors, penalties, ensuring we adhere to industry standards and best practices. So gaining a competitive advantage is crucial in today's healthcare landscape, especially in our local markets, right? These advanced digital tools allow labs to bring their offer to a wider community with better services, innovative testing options that sets the lab apart from others. So typically, LIS is a really important differentiator for laboratories. Allows you to serve the community and the doctors, the ordering providers, exactly the way they want to be served. And you can build all of this into the back end of the system and let the system take care of this. So this establishes the lab as a leader in your market. which basically allows you to retain and win new customers, scale the operations. And these are also, really key benefits of this digital transformation. So by improving our efficiency and capabilities, we can attract new business, retain the current ones we have, provide them with superior service. Digital transformation also makes it easier to scale your operation, whether it's by increasing the testing capacity, directory of services, and expanding our services and offerings to the customers. So unifying and gaining operational visibility is about having a clear, comprehensive view of the entire operation. This visibility allows us to make more informed decisions, identify areas for improvement, and monitor the impact of changes we implement. Lastly, solving for today and future means the digital transformation is not just a one-time upgrade, it's an ongoing process that prepares us for future challenges and opportunities. As technology evolves, so do our capabilities, enabling us to continuously adapt and stay ahead of our field. So in conclusion, digital transformation is an essential step in modernizing the laboratory. It's more than just technology, it's about improving our services efficiently and the ability to adapt in a rapidly evolving healthcare environment. With that, I will ask Michael to go over a case study that a recently implemented laboratory gained by moving to more modern systems.
Well, thanks for that, Suren. And I think and Dennis, very, very well done, very compelling argument that you make as far as what to look for to indeed evaluate the current state and also learn about what else is out there. At LigoLab, I know, Suren, you brought this term up just the other day. I think it's pretty fitting, whether it be LigoLab or another LIS software partner that you're contemplating working with. Look at that company not necessarily as a software company, but as a lab scaling company. I think that's a really good mindset because, as we all know, no two laboratories are alike. And as we all know, laboratory environment's constantly changing. So having a laboratory system and a laboratory software vendor partner that is there and interested not only in where you are today, but where you're going to get and how quickly you're going to get there in the future, I think are two very important considerations. Everybody likes to hear success stories. We certainly do here at LigoLab as well. Here's a laboratory that was doing what a lot of laboratories do, using outdated manual processes, fragmented software solutions, running into common problems of inefficiency, errors, delayed reporting, all things that turn into bottlenecks that can hurt the business today and tomorrow. So the lab recognized the bottlenecks, recognized that it was time to make a change, and then partnered with LigoLab. Modernization with LigoLab system resulted in a 31% increase in lab productivity, reduction in errors, improved turnaround time, better relations with your clients. All of these things are offshoots of this increased efficiency and productive within the lab. And then also, most importantly, I think laboratories are businesses too. Revenue boosted by 18% in the subsequent year, thanks to the enhanced laboratory system that was operating within this laboratory, and also the gain in reputation as it works with its clients. Really impressive numbers, just one case study, but one to keep in mind here. Increase in productivity and efficiency will ultimately mean more in net collections and less time in accounts receivable for your laboratory.
So with that, thank you, Michael. We've prepared some self-assessment questions that you could be asking internally. These will help determine if your laboratory has outgrown its informatics, right, platforms, and assess whether consideration to switch or upgrade might be needed. So some symptoms, right? If your LIS can't integrate well with other equipment, EHRs or systems, it might force you to use multiple platforms. And this approach leads to data silos and synchronization issues, impacting efficiency and accuracy. For example, if your lab's workload has grown and current LIS is struggling with data processing, slow response times, or frequent crashes, it might be assigned to upgrade. Or an LIS should provide an in-depth reporting and analytics. If your current system falls short in generating reports or adhering to regulatory requirements, it may no longer be adequate. Assess if your LIS can adapt to future growth or technological advancements. A system that isn't flexible or easily upgradable can hinder your lab's potential to evolve and stay competitive and relevant.
I think the issue of silos is a very significant one, because in many cases, you don't really know for sure which is the truth, which is the source of truth. If you have different systems that are not well integrated, and interfacing can be done, but there are a number of issues associated with interfacing in terms of keeping the data coordinated and consistent with each other. Good point.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. Some more things to consider, right? If the LIS is not user-friendly, leads to inefficiencies, errors, frustrations, and a major drawback. User needs evolve, and systems that once seemed adequate can become outdated. LIS should meet an evolving
Maybe Suren froze. See if he comes on back.
Well, I want to comment again on support maintenance. Very often overlooked. I think people sometimes look at the function and feature and they say, wow, look at this, isn't this great? And maybe it is. But the important thing is, I think a very important thing is, are you really a good partner with your vendor? And does your vendor understand your particular laboratory operation and what's unique about it? Because as Suren said, labs are different. I used to have a saying that said, labs are all the same. And then people go, oh, and then I go on and say, except for the differences. Labs are all the same, except for the differences. And you folks out there in the lab, you know that that's the case.
Thank you, Dennis. And excuse my Wi-Fi here. But yeah, it's a really good key point there. And some of the things we need to also consider is compliance, right? To keep up with the regulatory requirements and security function features, vendor and maintenance. If the vendor charges excessively for every small change and cannot deliver the robust functionality needed to stay competitive in your market, that's a significant red flag. Frequent disruption and maintenance or slow support responses also indicate it's time for a change. So operational cost and efficiencies, consider the total cost of operating your LIS, including indirect costs like downtime, staffing inefficiencies. A system that requires additional software staff to fill the gaps can lead to increased operational costs. So in summary, evaluating your LIS in terms of scalability, integration capabilities, reporting and analytics, user interface, compliance, vendor support, so much to consider here, right? It can become financially burdensome to the laboratory without delivering these necessary functions. So, all of these things, if you're answering even up to half of it, it's really, time to look for a more suitable and advanced solution. So with that, I want to bring us towards our final slide and discuss, transitioning, for example, to a company like LigoLab can be a transformative step for your laboratory to position itself for success in a competitive environment. LigoLab stands out with its best-in-class white glove service, ensuring that your experience is seamless and supported at every stage. So we offer a unified platform that includes not just an LIS, but really all the supporting modules the laboratory needs to be successful, paired with revenue cycle management system that has full visibility into the operational technical operations and is able to help with coding and all the compliance that comes with that. A direct-to-consumer solution called Test Directly. This unified approach eliminates the need for multiple disjointed systems, thereby reducing data silos and synchronization issues. And one of the key reasons why LigoLab was founded is we wanted to take full ownership of all of your informatic needs, as if there is an issue with an interface or an issue, in one part of the disciplines or departments, or overall with the system, you only have one vendor that takes full responsibility for all the informatics needs, rather than the finger pointing that is a commonplace, unfortunately. So we really align with the laboratory and its growth. LigoLab is designed to grow with your laboratory. It understands that your laboratory expands and your needs evolve, then the system is built to adapt and scale, providing flexibility, functionality requirements to support your lab's growth and changes in the industry. So we're continuously improving the system. Every day we roll out new features. With LigoLab, you're not just getting a static system, you're investing in a solution that's continuously improving. LigoLab stays ahead of the industry trends and technological advancements, ensuring that your laboratory has access to the latest features, modules, and tools to be successful.
Well, in addition to helping you win, Suren, I believe I'm correct that LigoLab will help you justify, if you have situations which we described where it makes sense to replace your system, but you have to convince someone that to do it. And the biggest factor is always money. Money is a big factor. So I believe that if you look at the cost of ownership over a number of period of years, I believe that LigoLab will help you look at the financial trade-offs and the financial difference between, for example, upgrading to LigoLab versus continuing to operate your existing system in terms of what your current cost model is. I think I'm correct.
Yep. Thank you, Dennis. And it's not just about software, it's really about the service. It's providing best-in-class, unparalleled support and assistance to the labs. It includes personalized training, responsive customer service, expert guidance to ensure maximum benefit out of the system. It's not, going live isn't just like a one period. We're continuously helping the laboratory evolve and implement new features to keep up with the dynamic nature of this industry. So, in a competitive market, having a robust, efficient, forward-thinking LIS partner can be a game changer. It not only streamlines the laboratory operations, but also enhances your ability to provide high-quality service, stay in compliance, and make data-driven decisions. All of these factors contribute to strengthening your position and reputation in the marketplace. By choosing LigoLab, you're not just selecting a software solution, you're partnering with a team of dedicated laboratorians, software engineers, and people who will continuously help and improve your workflow and provide the best processes that we learn from different organizations, so that the laboratory can have a lot of different choices in how the system is working for them, because as Dennis mentioned, every lab is quite different. Even though it sounds like it should be the same, every lab loves to do things a little bit differently, and that's why it's important to build a system that has this level of flexibility to really tailor to your needs without necessarily needing to go and write new software for it. It's more on the back end, super configurable, and in your hands to be able to make this change without ever being nickel and dimed for all these configuration needs. That's what laboratories that are customers with us love to have, this kind of capability at their fingertips, because not only, does it not cost them a couple of $1,000s every time they need to make a change, it really costs them a few minutes to go and make that change themselves. So with LigoLab and its unified platform, we align with your growth. That's our pricing model, our licensing model, and just in general, our philosophy. That's why we provide best-in-class service. We commit to continuous improvements and make it an invaluable asset in achieving and maintaining a leading edge in your field. So I really want to thank you all for your time, attention, and wishing you all happy holidays. Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. I think the summary you gave was fantastic. Basically, we bet on the lab's future success, which is a big part of our success too. And so that really is one of the core beliefs with LigoLab is we want to have not just a contract, we want to have a partnership, and we believe in your lab's growth, be it anatomic pathology, molecular diagnostics, reference laboratory. We have the tools to help you. Now, we still have a minute or two, so we can slip in a question from the audience. If there are any, go ahead and use the chat option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. One thing that kind of came out of this discussion for me, and maybe Dennis, I'll let you weigh in here first. How many lab managers, lab directors out there are familiar with what is out there with today's innovative laboratory information solutions? If they've been working within a laboratory environment and their LIS is 10 years old.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because if you're a user of a certain system, your mindset is sort of related to that particular system. And sometimes it's very, very hard for someone to understand that they can leapfrog ahead, because their experience has been, this is the way the system works. It's text oriented, or it has this way of doing things. And it's really difficult for the users, and this includes the LIS managers and the lab managers very often, is that their mindset is sort of constrained by the system they're using. And sometimes it's really difficult to have them understand, for example, what does it mean if you're on the cloud? Or what does it mean if you have this type of flexibility in your system? And what does it mean if you're integrated versus interfaced? So I think there's a lot of educational needs out there, and that's why I'm pleased to see that LigoLab is offering informational webinars like this one.
Anything, Suren, you might want to add on that?
Yeah, well, we're seeing more and more prospects coming to us that are well educated on the exact issues they're having, and that's been really enlightening. I think there's a lot more awareness into what to look out for, and how, where the constraints are, and a lot of new customers do their homework, do massive due diligence. So the sales cycles are long, and they should be. This is a really important decision. It's a mission critical software. And we're seeing, people pay a lot more attention and make the right decisions.
And we do have a question from the audience. What size lab is your system designed to scale and support with a transition? Are you looking at a lab with 30 clients hoping to grow to 100, for instance? Someone trying to disrupt the real big national laboratories that exist within our country?
That's a great question. Really, the system is designed, for laboratories of really all sizes, but our real target audience is medium to large size laboratories, with already having hundreds of clients and scaling to thousands of clients, if not tens of clients. We have tens of thousands of clients. We have a lot of laboratories like this that we support. So we're covering over, enabling over 200 different laboratory facilities scale. I think of over almost 250 now. really, a lot of these labs can vary because we cover lots of different disciplines. So for example, for pathology labs, I'd say really a good level where the pain point is high enough to need an advanced system like a LigoLab is going to be like over 4 or 5 pathologists. Typically, a lot of the groups that we serve are in 10 to 20 pathologists. That's a typical customer. But then we have groups that have almost 100 pathologists in it. So really, on the pathology side, it varies. On the molecular or clinical side, it's typically a couple of hundred tests per day, but more often a couple of thousand tests per day, and they're looking to scale that, 2, 3, 4, 5 times more. We have laboratories that have grown 10 times more, but obviously this takes, much longer time periods because, it doesn't happen overnight unless it's COVID. And even in those instances during COVID, we had many laboratories that were processing around 1,000 or a few thousand, lower, let's say 1,000 or 2,000 cases per day. We saw some of the fastest growing laboratories in the country were LigoLab customers. I don't think it was coincidence. Typically, these customers had the entire platform. We call it the trifecta, and that is the direct-to-consumer solution in the front, LIS in the middle, running all the technical operations, and then the RCM in the back, automating all of the back end. And this really, the main job an LIS has is to remove the bottleneck of growth. And the artificial ceilings that the laboratory ends up kind of being trapped in, this is what the LIS and the LIS partner's job is to remove. And this could happen at different scales, right? So whether it's like a small client growing from 30 clients to 100, completely different problems that need to be solved, but then which is from 100 to 500, 500 to a few thousand, and then a few thousand to, during COVID, these customers that had a 1,000 or 2,000 went to be processing on average between 20 to 30,000 orders per day, and then some of them reaching 50,000 per day. So these are completely different scaling problems, but the beauty is you don't need to keep changing systems to be able to solve for these. The system LigoLab has been built foundationally from ground up to be able to solve all of these different artificial barriers as the lab reaches. So that's why with our aligned pricing model, we're very much in line with the growing growth appetite of the laboratory. So whether you're just a startup lab trying to take over a little bit of a marketplace or trying to disrupt Quest or LabCorp, we're there to support you. In fact, like Sonic Healthcare has been a customer for over 10 years for us. So I think they're on their way to making some disruptions on the larger scale as well. So thank you for that question.
All right, I have, I think, time for one more here. Can you give me an example of automation and how it would, within my lab, take a complex process and turn it into a simple one?
So typically, automations and rule engine can help bring all of this standardization into the workflow, make sure nothing is dropped through the cracks. So something simple, for example, maybe like, let's say with women's health, where you might have different testing platforms. And you have, let's say, a Panther, a Roche for your molecular needs. And you might have some customers that have a preference for these testing platforms. So based off the combination of the specimen, the preference of the customer, and the availability of the instrument, the system can help make these routing decisions on where the specimen should go to. And literally, it can put human readable data on the specimen level. Of course, the platform has all this information in it. So when you scan the specimen, it tells you, where it's been, what kind of derivatives it might have off of it, and where it's going. So, this is just like a very small, simple automation that could be built to help with these kind of preferences, or something such as like routing. If you're not carrying a certain type of insurance, the system can route to a different laboratory for testing. And all of this, instead of Betsy in the laboratory remembering all these preferences, these are basically programmed by your team with our team's help in the beginning. But it's once you do the same thing a few times, it becomes pretty simple for someone to replicate and maintain these rules and automations. The laboratory can build as many of these as they wish. We've seen some laboratories build, with 30 plus different nodes of decision making, like a decision support tree, to really model the realities and the needs of customers or the laboratory into the system, so that the system can help improve these and make sure nothing slips through the cracks.
Yeah, I'd like to underscore what Suren said. In a complex situation, there are a lot of decisions that have to be made. And if the decisions are being presented to the user all the time, you can clearly simplify the process by building in rules or AI that says, I understand where you need to go with this, and not require someone to do all the manual entries in a complex process. So I think, Suren, you're right on target.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right. Well, we'll respect everybody's time. We're approaching the top of the hour. I guess we do have a little bit of time just to say, any final thoughts from Dennis or Suren before we say goodbye? I'll take that as no.
Well, I was just going to say that, there are a lot of people out there that probably are operating LISs that should be replaced. And I think it falls very often on the vendor to be able to provide the tools and the information to these people, so that they're struggling. They're having problems. They're not, they're getting rejected claims, whatever, in their system, or the turnaround times are getting slower, and they'd like to replace the system, but they could use help. And I think it behooves any vendor who's looking at helping a lab to be able to say, hey, we can give you some tools to help you do what you need to do to convince the people to release the money to let you do what you need to do. And that would be my comment.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. I would add, today with all of the different pressures from reimbursement rates being cut, staffing shortages, more expensive labor costs, it's really important, to make the right investment into the laboratory's future, and ensuring the growth, efficiency, and success really is how do we go from this mode of trying to survive into thriving. And like, we believe the right partners for your industry, for your laboratory, are the key for this. And it's becomes more and more relevant to make the right decisions today. So really would love to welcome any future questions, thoughts. We're always available to help and answer and show guidance in how we approach things, and how your laboratory can benefit from it. Thank you all.